Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the LitRPG podcast. I'm Ramon Mejia, here to bring you the latest LitRPG news, reviews, and author interviews. This week is episode number 268 of the show, and I got 5 new reviews for you folks at home, and that's going to include Everwood, The Weight of It All, a LitRPG fantasy adventure. This is the 3rd book in the series, I believe. Also out is going to be The Gate of the Feral Gods, Dungeon Crawler book number 4 as a review. Also, Devourer, Reality Bounders, book number 8 in the series. Easy Meat, Foodstuffs, the LitRPG. And online manga review of 990,000 X-Life Hunter. So there we go. We got 5 reviews for you folks at home. No new real news for the week this week, but do have stuff that is going to come out now. Stuff that's out since the last time we recorded the podcast, so there's a nice long list here. That's going to include The Path Through the Heavens, The Heavenly Thrones book number 6, also Underverse book number 5, and also later on a link for number 6 in the series. We'll have out now though the 10 Realms book number 8 in the series, called The 7th Realm. There's a discrepancy obviously between 7th realm, which book it is and which realm it is, because there was a 2-parter for one of the books. So there we go. Also out is The Prison of the Gourmet, and Cyber Mage Realization, as well as the 2nd book in the Goblin Summoner series called Lichbane. Also out is the Dungeon Crawler Carl 4, which is a book we're reviewing today in the podcast. Is the Pre-Souls Apocalypse book number 2. Master Hunter K book number 1 is out. The 7th book in the Sleepless One series called Clan Dominance. And remember, this is a Russian translation story that was re-released, repolished, with new cover art, but everything from I think book 6 on is actually completely new. So if you enjoyed that other series, definitely go check it out. Also out is The Awakening, World of Magic book number 1, as is Necrotic Apocalypse book number 3, which has been a very entertaining series. Also out is The Realm Divers, and the 4th book in the Game of God series, out for you to enjoy right now. We also have new audiobooks since the last time we were on the podcast, including the Necrotic Apocalypse book number 3. They're doing a simultaneous ebook and audiobook release. The Hive Mind, Trinity of Hives book number 3 is out as an audiobook. The 6th Realm Part 2, which is the 7th book in the series, is out as an audiobook for you to enjoy. Good Guys book number 10 is out. Solo Leveling book number 1. Now, this is actually a translation of an international series that's very popular. I personally really love the manga version. We've actually reviewed it on the podcast before. Gave it really high marks, 8 out of 10, I believe. This is the novel version, however. So just be aware that there are going to be some translation quirks that not everybody appreciates, and there are also sound effects in this particular version of the story. So just as an FYI, be aware of what you're getting into. A lot of the reviews have noted some weird translation stuff, and I found that to be the case when I read the fan translations online. Didn't care for it. I much prefer the online comic or manga version online. It's just super visually stunning. But if you have a need to listen to the audiobook version of the novel, here it is. Also out there right now for you is Blasphemy Online book number 3. The Weight of It All book number 1, Heavy, is out as an audiobook. We're again reviewing the 3rd book in the series as an ebook. Also out is The Wasteland Zero Circle Way series book number 1 is an audiobook. The Idol System book number 7 is also out. Darklands book number 1. The 5th book in the Monster Maces and Magic series called Pawn, out. Also Star Tower System Misinterpretation book number 1, Post-Apocalyptic Cultivation LitRPG, which is actually a really good novel. I enjoyed the ebook version of this when I read it. I recommend. The 3rd, actually this is a compilation release, Condition Evolutions books 1 through 3. I actually enjoyed book number 1. I never just found the time to read book number 2 or 3, but other people have really enjoyed it, and they're all collected for you to enjoy here. Also out is Player vs. Player, Gamified book number 2. Real-Time Star Commander book number 3 is out as an audiobook. I've enjoyed the series. Sci-fi, action, definitely a little more towards real-time strategy and not really RPG, but there are game elements. So I saw a strategy game-like novel, but I enjoyed that one. Also out is a compilation of the Life in Exile series, books 1 through 3 out for you. Also the Dungeon of Chance book number 2 is out, and Somnia Online book number 7, which I believe is the last book in that particular series, out for you as an audiobook. Also the Rise of the Shield Hero Volume 1. This is again another popular online comic and actually anime as well. This is the audiobook version of the novel version. Again, the novel versions are translated, and sometimes there are issues with that particular type of storytelling. I read the fan translation of this novel. It didn't work for me. I again much prefer the comic or the anime a lot more. But if you're into that series and you're just going for, you need something to listen to and you like the series, give it a shot. The third book in the Song Matron series, Universal Online Trilogy book number 3 is out as an audiobook, as is the Eternal Journey book number 5. Awaken Online 8 out for you. Legends Online book number 6 has also been released. Reborn Evolution book number 2 is out as well. And last but not least, Adventuring Clothing, a System Apocalypse short story, out for you to enjoy as an audiobook. So many great audiobooks out for you to listen to. If you're an audiobook fan and you love LitRPGs, please go check out this list and pick out something new for yourself to enjoy. We have a whole long list of upcoming LitRPG, but it's getting long. It goes from now, which I'm recording it, all the way to the end of September. So definitely go check out the list if you want to see what's coming out in the near future. But just a couple highlights from the list. New to the list is going to be Aussie Man Apocalypse book number 3. I enjoyed the first book in the series, just never got around to reading book number 2, but it's going to be out on July the 20th. Also, as a highlight, the Good Guys book number 12 is going to be out on July the 30th. Really looking forward to Alpha Physics book number 2. It was a surprise delight for me, out on July 31st. What else do we have here? Rogue Dungeon, as an anthology series of short stories, going to be out on August the 3rd. We also are going to have, let's see, a few more here. Yep, and that looks like He Who Fights with Monsters, book number 3, will be out on September the 7th here. So looking forward to that one in a couple months. And I think that's just about it of the things I am looking forward to, besides Underdog book number 7, which will be out on September the 30th. But again, we have a whole long list of things to look forward to. If you're looking at the video version of the podcast, you can see me scrolling by them. So if there are things in there that you want to check out, again, we have a whole formal list on our website at litrpgpodcast.com. In our recommendation section, we have all this stuff linked out for you. Review dates, release dates rather, for the title, so you can check it out there and pick up the things you want to pre-order. So there we go. We're on to new releases and reviews. Okay, first up for the week's reviews is going to be Everwood, The Weight of It All, book number 3, written by J.J. Thorne. It is 314 pages, $3.99. It's available on Kindle Unlimited, and here's the author's description. Into the Everwood Prep's dungeon dive is here. Closing towards the end of prep, Terrence and his team are now working harder than ever to rank up and progress in their infinities. When an old acquaintance decides to stand in their way, will the team be able to deal with the threat? Packs of monsters will stand in the way, but will their fellow students be their most significant burden to overcome? For Tom and his group, the death of their friend is only the beginning. They're ready to leave the dungeon for good, but will the dungeon let them? Will Omar lead the leader of the expedition? Find out in the latest Summon Await of Online Everwood. Okay, I'll be honest, that novel description needs some work. It does describe multiple storylines, and there are basically two storylines here. One is just like a general higher end level dungeon diver group going on that's just continued through the series. That storyline is continuing here. It's there just to kind of give you, I think, some extra action and also indicators for what it's like to be a higher end adventure. I believe that storyline is going to be tying into the main one in book 4 in the series. We'll have to wait and see. With the main series, the main storyline still follows the same main character who's at that magical academy. And I think this, to me, is the best book in the series. Book 1 and 2 have been they're fine. They're not like super amazing. They've had elements that I thought, oh, this has a lot of potential. And that potential is essentially kind of fulfilled here. This is probably the best paced of the 3 stories that are out currently. It has the most action and adventure, and it finally has the dungeon diving that I have thought it was going to have from the entire series when they mentioned dungeons. And it's a nice, good action adventure story. There's different kinds of conflicts where there's an actual antagonist to the story in the novel that the main characters have to face and oppose and overcome in whatever way they're going to do in the story. And it added some well-needed tension, because otherwise for books 1 and 2, it was a very slice of life, and that's not bad if you're okay with that. But there was always there's never any sense of like urgency or any kind of real threat to the characters. They just kind of went through the school, they learned about their powers, they went on occasional little dungeon runs, or had these little fights. And this one definitely has that and more. It has dungeon diving. It has a tournament competition, which has been teased in book 1 and 2, and it's actually happening here. And that those 2 elements combined added a lot more action in the story, which I really personally appreciated, because it gave the characters the opportunity to show off the fruits of their training. The main character, how he's using his heavy ability, and in interesting ways and in critical ways to grow as a character, and also to show off to the power system and of course action and monsters and all the good stuff that I enjoy as a LitRPG reader. Overall, to me, it is again the best entry in the series. Easily read it in one sitting, because it was just, the pacing again was just much more compelling to enjoy. And I think it's also the highest rated book in the series as well. So for me, it gets a score of 7.8 out of 10. That's really good. That's the highest score right beyond any of the 3 books. That's Everwood. We have it all with the score of 7.8 out of 10. And next up we have The Gate of the Feral Gods, Dungeon Crawler Carl, book number 4, written by Matt Dinneman. It is 476 pages, $3.99. It's available on Kindle Unlimited. Here's the author's description. New achievement, total, utter failure. You failed the quest less than 5 minutes after you received it. Now that's talent. A floating fortress occupied by warrior gnomes, a castle made of sand, a derelict submarine guarded by the malfunctioning machines, a haunted crypt surrounded by lethal traps. It's supposed to be easy. 1 bubble, 4 castles, 15 days, capture each one, and the stairwell is unlocked. Here's the thing. It's never easy. Carl and his team can't go it alone. Not this time. They must rely on the help of the low levels. I can't believe these idiots are still alive crawlers trapped in the bubble with them. But can they be trusted? Welcome, crawler. Welcome to the 5th floor of the dungeon. Okay. This is another good entry in the competitive RPG Apocalypse series. More action adventure and weird as heck mayhem. The progression is front-loaded. Mostly there were some interesting twists on how Carl and Princess Donut face the challenges thrown at them on this level. But frankly, the crazy is expected at this point. If you've read the stuff from Matt Dinneman, you know that he can do some really weird and odd things with the characters and the settings. And this is no less of a good representation of that. I never really know what to expect with the stories that Matt writes, but they're always entertaining, and this is good. They have great group banter, great stuff with Princess Donut and Carl, and the expansion of their group, and all the adventures they go on are very interesting. But for me, the thing I was most excited about is definitely the end of the book, where they hint at this, they develop and tease something that I'd been expecting from the first book in the entry. I'm like, oh, this character is definitely going to come back. They mentioned her too many times for it not to come up and be this major, like, emotional turning point for the character and development issue. And I'd been expecting it for some of the book to finally see even just a little hint of that. At the end, I was like, oh, okay, yes, you have my purchase of book number 5, Matt. And so I'm definitely looking forward to that development the most. For me, though, everything else is always entertaining, always good stuff. Again, it's very much slice of life dungeon crawl kind of story. And you know, it is what it is. You're either going to enjoy the characters or enjoy the weird setups and tests and novels and the giant progression towards the end, especially in the way it resolves, or you're not. And for me and a lot of other readers, it's highly enjoyable. I think this is one of the highest rated novels series for the author in general, so a lot of people really enjoy it as well, and I'm one of them. For me, again, it gets a score of 7.8 out of 10. Really good story for The Gate of the Pharaoh Gods, Dungeon Crawler book number 4. And next up we have Devourer, Reality Benders book number 8, written by Michael Antonoff. It is 491 pages, $6.99. It is not on Kindle Unlimited. Here's the author's description. The aggressive invaders from another galaxy cannot be stopped. The composite keep capturing system after system, wiping out everything in its path, and there's no sign of a force capable of standing up to it. In the search for allies, Nat embarks on a long journey aimed at uniting the various branches of the human race. And though the potential for alliance is there, how can he convince them to set off to fight a suicidal war with such a disastrous balance of forces? Beyond that, things aren't as easy as they were initially seemed with humans from the far-off empire, and they have a compelling reason not to enter this war which does not concern them. There's also the status of sole ruler of humanity at stake, which is not the kind of achievement that can be shared, and that means one of the human leaders will have to back down. Okay, so there's definitely some teasing plot lines in that novel description about things that are developed here, and I'd say easily the first half of the story really deserves some kudos, at least for me. It brings in characters and forces from another of the author's series, the Perimeter Defense series, which is officially done in its own right. And this entry takes place I think decades after that last book in that series. But you're going to get to see characters you enjoy, the main character of that series returning, and additional other side characters that you may or may not liked. And they're definitely taking a huge half a story, cameo in this. And I think they're going to be a regular returner as a potential allied force. But even if you haven't read that series, there's still enough setup from the last book and this one that you can appreciate that they're an interesting faction all on their own. But for me personally, because I've read that other series and I really enjoyed it, it was nice to see those characters came out. I'm always a sucker for a cameo or a crossover when it happens with characters in series that I love. So this was definitely up my alley. Other than that, the second half of the story is really just a slice of life adventure with the main character advancing several story arcs, which are really important, and there's including the one with the composite, and also some conflicts with the next book, in addition to a few other things. Overall, it's entertaining. It's a little lighter in the action, I think, than the last book, and I think that's intentional in that they're developing other plot lines and other advancements, and also setting up a larger conflict potentially with the next book where there's supposed to be more action, since there's going to be more of a insertion of the main character and his faction into other areas. But for me, it definitely got extra kudos points because it incorporated very nicely characters from another series from out there that I really enjoyed, the Perimeter Defense series. So overall, good read for me. Good score 7.7 out of 10. That's Devourer, Reality Benders book number 8 with a score of 7.7 out of 10. And next up we have Easy Meat, Foodstuffs, LitRPG, written by Arthur Stone. It is 355 pages. It is $5.99. It's available on Kindle Unlimited, and here's the author's description. Welcome to the challenge. You're an absolute nobody. Here, nothing. A zero, a useless lump of meat filled with bones. You're but a delicious morsel for your antagonists and those who are lucky at the start. Your only goal, the only goal you can have in your miserable existence is to kick the bucket as soon as possible. Okay, that is a very interesting novel description. It does not do justice, I think, to what is actually in the novel, though. This is a very good modern set player versus player story. It has a very unique, it has a very different, I should say, RPG progression system than other stories. It doesn't just have levels. It's not a very interesting, I want to say, they call it a class system in the story, but essentially it's a class system in the sense of a stratified society system where the lowest tier of kidnapped players are called meat. They they're essentially fodder for the other higher tier players. And they give really big rewards when they're killed. Like they give a bunch of cool equipment, all the little resources they need to upgrade equipment or themselves and gain their levels. And the main character, as this fodder meat, has to figure out a way to understand the rules that he's found himself in, survive the encounters of their players, and essentially go from being the bottom of this like hierarchical system to a real threat to other players. And that's kind of the line of progression that you're following in the story. It goes from like main character having really nothing, just his underwear, surviving monsters, surviving his initial other players, and it shows how he uses his intelligence, how he figures out the rules over time, and takes advantage of those rules to really progress to be an actual threat to these other players who had a hand up when they started. So it's very entertaining to see. It's again a very modern setting, so you're going to see things like guns, but they have limited resources, limited bullets around, and other options. And there definitely is an RPG system, but again, it is very much geared towards a PvP kind of system, in that most the players are hunting each other, and also mostly hunting these meat class, these classes players, and they're very intelligent and very cruel players who are taking advantage of the system to create their own little power bases. And overall, this is just one timed level where they only have a certain amount of time to get to a certain like level ranking, and then they're going to go somewhere else, and it's going to start all over. And there might be new rules that it's going to happen is unclear. That first like level doesn't end in the book though. It really is just like, oh, this is kind of a slice of life adventure story, survival story of the main character. Where he's figuring things out. And it's just, I thought it was very entertaining. And again, the RPG system is really resource based, in that when you kill another player or monster, you use resources of various things to gain levels, to upgrade your stats, upgrade repair equipment, learn system skills, heal yourself, heal poisons, whatever the case is, medicines. And all these things are very much dropped by killing players, by killing monsters. And so there is very much an aggressive stance on what players should and should not be doing. The main character does kind of find an interesting space in how to do that without like necessarily being a player killer, or necessarily like wanting to kill other people like him who are defenseless, who are meant to be fodder to help level up other players. So very interesting stuff. And again, the loot crate system is very much like an intricate part of the progression, so which I thought was unique, and I thought was an interesting way to make your PvP system mean something, instead of just it being about numbers on a ranking system. It really is about, oh, this is the fastest and the best way to gather resources, so we can do that, or are you going to take a slower progression path? It's a choice the character has to make. So overall, there's a little bit of awkwardness in a slower beginning because the main character doesn't know what's going on, so that is kind of us and the character. But once the action started, it was regular. There were smart fights. There was a good variety of action tactics, and I enjoyed it overall. For me, it gets a score of 7.7 out of 10, which is a pretty good review score. It's about pretty close to great, but not quite there. It's easy meets Foodstuff with a score of 7.7 out of 10. And next up, we have 990,000 X Life Hunter. It is 23 chapters currently. It has weekly updates. And as of last week, it has an official English translator. So it's on tappytunes.net. There are fan translations out there if you reach the end of this and you want to get ahead a little bit more. But the official English translator is, again, Tappytunes. Here's the online manga description. The ordinary Afro-like hunter Gang Hyun-jin had always prayed for the strength to change his life. One day his prayers were answered. The final sword saint praises your bravery. The mastery of shadows is yours. Enough. This is too much. 990,000 past lives appeared in front of him. So there you go. That's all in the description. This is an online manga about a dungeon diver who, upon who upon reaching the very edge of death after betrayals by his group, finds a connection to his past lives and gains various traits and powers from them. It's a simple slice of life dungeon dive story set in the modern world. RG mechanics are fairly simple with ranks, ability levels, equipment, descriptions. It's a society that's integrated dungeon diving into its society and its very fundamental culture. The more powerful of a player or a dungeon diver you are, ability column hunters, the more status and money you have in this world. Overall, it's a good story with regular action and clean looking art panels, which I appreciated personally. And I really did think the past life connection thing has a lot of potential, a lot of long-term potential, because if he has 990,000 past lives, there's no end to the amount of situations you can put him in, and just have one of the past lives just kind of pop up and be, hey, I'm the guy who's been in this situation. If you do this thing for me, this quest option, I can give you the power you need to survive. And that kind of stuff can be repeated endlessly. So there's a lot of like good storytelling potential. And there are a lot of interesting past lives, in the first 23 chapters, that they have different characteristics, where there's been like a guardian with a shield ability that you can learn in spears, or somebody who's more shadow-based and evil. And they all each have like this influence on the character that I think has a lot of like good, interesting potential for the series as a whole. Again, we will link in the show notes for the actual link to the official site, but I'll drop in a few pictures on the video version of the podcast so you can see what the artwork looks like. And it's very clean. It's an interesting story that I look forward to reading it on a weekly basis. So you can see the artwork is clean and crisp and good shading, good expressions for the characters. Everything looks really nice. That's always an interesting and important part for me, at least. One of the things that I appreciate about the visual storytelling of a manga or a comic book, or manhwa is the visual appeal in addition to the storytelling. So for me, this definitely does it for me. So I'm nice little recommendation here for, again, 990,000 X-Life Hunter, which we will link in the show notes again for you. Oh, that is it for the show. Thank you very much for listening, for watching. We have a link in the show notes for you. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Patreon, our website, Spotify, Audible, and any place you can get your local podcast. You can listen to the audio-only version of the podcast, but if you want to watch us, the best places that are going to be our website at litrpgpodcast.com, where you can see all the other 268 episodes of the show, all with video versions, also our sister podcast, the LitRPG Audiobook Podcast. And of course, you can see our recommendations. We have literally thousands of recommendations and reviews for you to go and scroll through, including tags for genre connections. You can see other stories of that type. So a great resource if you're looking for something. And we try to update the site on a weekly or bi-weekly basis with the stuff that has come out recently, whether it's ebooks or audiobooks, and also the stuff we know it's coming out in the near future from pre-orders. So definitely go check it out on a regular basis. It's updated pretty regularly. So again, thanks for hanging out with us this week on the podcast, and until we can hang out again, remember to go read some LitRPG.